News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. There's your closing bell for this Wednesday on Wall Street, where traders sent stocks lower after the Federal Reserve signaled the possibility of higher rates as it assesses the impacts of the Iran war on inflation. And traders fully priced in a Fed interest rate hike by October. We check those closing numbers for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 lost 91 points, NASDAQ down 355 points, and the Dow down 507 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.49%, the 2-year yield at 4.21%. WTI crude oil closing in on $76 a barrel, Brent crude nearing $79 a barrel. The Warsh Fed has left interest rates unchanged. They were split over whether they expect to raise rates this year. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh indicated that the Fed is going to follow the markets.
The more that markets are paying attention to what's happening in the real economy, deciding what's good data and what's less good data, the more financial markets can price what they believe is the most likely and what are the tail risks.
The Fed voted unanimously to hold its benchmark federal funds rate in a range of 3.5% to 3.75% and said inflation remains elevated. Warsh also says they've dropped forward guidance for now.
Some along the committee, I think, dropped it, I suspect, from our discussion the last couple of days, because they said at this moment in time, it doesn't feel as though providing forward guidance is right. Others have, I'd say, different views and think as a general proposition, forward guidance isn't the business we should be in. But that'll be taken up by the Task Force on Communications.
In fact, Warsh also announced that he is appointing 5 new task forces to examine areas worthy of a fresh look by the Fed, including communications, the balance sheet, the use of existing data sources, productivity and jobs, and the Fed's inflation frameworks. The Trump administration has hailed an interim peace deal with Iran that will allow Iran to restart oil exports immediately and potentially gain access to a $300 billion development program. President Trump says that's only if Iran does things right.
If they're doing things right, if people want to invest, they can invest. But they had this $300 million fund. It's only $300 billion fund. It's only if they're doing things right.
The deal does not restrict Iran's nuclear program, and those discussions will take place over the next 60 days with the possibility of an extension if both sides agree. The Memorandum of Understanding is set to be signed on Friday, but President Trump says it could happen sooner.
So the deal we reached with Iran on Sunday will be signed shortly. Tomorrow, maybe the next day.
President Trump speaking on the sidelines of the G7 summit in France. Oil stockpiles have plunged to critical lows, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve dropping to a near-record low of roughly 340 million barrels. That's the lowest since 1983. Bloomberg Intelligence senior commodity strategist Mike McGlone.
We don't need the Strategic Petroleum Reserve anymore. It was set up in 1974 by President Ford to cover 90 days of net imports. With Canada and U.S. crude oil and liquid fuel surplus is running around 8 million barrels a day. So you need it for things like wars and hurricanes.
Bloomberg's Mike McGlone on Bloomberg Intelligence. And at the G7, world leaders have agreed that no single country should supply more than 60% of their imports of rare earths by 2030. The G7 leaders aim to reduce their dependence on China by limiting their exposure to 50% as soon as possible after 2030. President Trump has forced the Senate to postpone the confirmation hearing for Jay Clayton as his next intelligence director. Trump's maneuver threw a wrench into Senate leaders' plans to quickly install Clayton before loyalist Bill Pulte takes the position on an acting basis on Friday. Senator Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, says the president also pulled the rug out from under bipartisan negotiations.
Bill Pulte, to our knowledge, doesn't even have a security clearance. And this is something that, again, Republicans and Democrats alike have expressed huge consternation.
Senate Intelligence Chairman Tom Cotton plans to reschedule the hearing after Trump directed Clayton not to appear. SpaceX shares are falling for the first time since its blockbuster debut, erasing a gain that had reached 6% earlier in the session. The decline put the stock on track to snap a 3-day winning streak, pushing shares nearly 50% above their $135 IPO price. SpaceX did manage to claw back some of those losses, going down about 3.5% in regular trading. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.